So may I have a big big round of applause for Richard Duncan. Thank you.
Hello, Hanoi. It's great to be here. Great to see you. I was walking around in your old town today. It's absolutely beautiful. I love to visit Hanoi.
Love Hanoi.
And normally, I'm not the kind of person who is considered to be very optimistic. After all, I've written books called The Dollar Crisis. Could you please put that on the screen? And my second book was called The New Depression. So normally, I don't make very optimistic statements. But I'd like to tell you that I believe Vietnam has a fantastic future ahead of you. And believe me,
wait a minute. I will tell you, he's the most pessimistic guy of all. And when he says you have a bright future, it must be really bright.
So congratulations, enjoy. We're going to talk more about your bright future a little bit later. But to begin with, I'm going to tell you why the world economy is not facing such a bright future. So you're in a particularly lucky situation. The global economy is still in the midst of a very serious crisis. It is not over. So what I'd like to leave you with more than anything else tonight is an understanding that the economy doesn't work the way it used to 50 years ago, or 100 years ago, or 200 years ago, when Adam Smith and David Ricardo wrote all of classical economic theory. Back then, gold was money. Gold was money. And that made the economy work in a certain way. But for the last 40 years, gold is no longer money. Now money is just made out of paper. And governments are free to create as much of it as they want. And this has changed everything. So I'd like to show you what has changed, how this has changed. In the first chart, what this shows you is the United States trade balance. In other words, how much the United States buys from the rest of the world compared with how much the rest of the world buys from the US. And you can see up until about 1980, it was in balance. But after the US stopped backing its money with gold, the United States could buy things from other countries and it didn't have to pay with gold anymore. It could just pay with paper money. And it started having a very big trade deficit in the 1980s. And by 2006, the United States deficit was $800 billion, 1 year. Now this was great for the rest of the world. This was great for countries like Japan, who could sell things to the United States, and great for Taiwan and Korea, and Thailand and Malaysia. They could sell more and more and more to the US every year. And later China. China's been the main beneficiary of this. But in 2008, the Americans couldn't keep taking on more and more debt every year. And they started defaulting. And at that time, the Americans started buying less from the rest of the world. And you can see that's why the line goes back up. And when the United States started buying less from the rest of the world, that's when the global economic crisis started.
So why don't you take a moment, okay? This is when the discussion's important. Talk to the person sitting next to you and see if you can understand what Richard just said and what the picture is saying. And even if you have no idea what that picture means or what Richard said, just pretend you do, lie, do something, you know.
Well, let me just say, as long as the U.S. kept buying more and more from the rest of the world every year, the global economy boomed.
Let them discuss, Richard. So just discuss what he's trying to say to you. As long as the U.S. could print money,